Hello, everyone. This is Joed Lopez of the Q2 podcast, sponsored by Penvisio. It's been a while, but we're coming back with a special episode. You're going to be seeing a return episode soon, but this is kind of like a bonus episode to catch up for lost time, where we're going to be talking about financial literacy as a potential means for social change. And with us is Angel Marenco, who's been on a big financial literacy kick, diving deeper in that space. And we're just going to have a discussion of our experiences, some tips that's helped us throughout our careers. And hopefully you can walk away with something that's tangible and you can act upon immediately listening to this. So, Angel, thanks so much for joining us, man.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. Looking forward to not just this. I know that we're working on some content specifically around financial literacy. Looking forward to working on that, and hopefully being on the podcast a couple more times. So.
Yeah, for sure. This is your second time joining us. The first episode was more of a strictly tech episode, and I'm sure we'll probably touch upon it somehow because we're just both techies like that. We'll eventually get there, but this episode is surrounding financial literacy. You probably saw the rant that I did on Facebook that was inspired by our initial discussion of having this episode.
Sure.
And a lot when it comes to like social change, some of the things that don't come to mind immediately is individual financial literacy. I wanted to just kind of open up and say, man, is that normal? Do you think it should be normal that that's the case? And if not, why? That's I guess this is a general discussion we're having anyways.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting. Don't mind my crazy dog, Hobbs.
I think we have another special guest. What's the dog's name? Hobbs?
Hobbs. His name's Hobbs. He's a Wheaton Terrier. He's about 1.5 years old, and he's still getting used to the new building here in Cincinnati. So every once in a while, he'll
go crazy,
get a little crazy with the neighbors and everything.
Just for the records, this is being recorded. I did say hi to you, Becky. So that's just just in case. But anyways, yeah. So yeah, but
So sure. So to what you were saying though, in terms of its importance in bringing around social change, yeah, absolutely. I think it's very important, and I thought it's not focused on enough. But I want to take it a step further and say that it's not focused on enough in terms of just personal change. The people affect social change, right? And then the people that are working on this kind of stuff, they themselves within their own lives, within their personal lives, outside of the work that they may be doing for an organization, for their company, for their church, for their whatever it is, for themselves, I don't think the majority of people have enough financial literacy. And so if you can't comfortably make sure that your electricity is on every month, you're not going to be able to affect social change because you're worried too much about what's going on in your personal life. So I think that having financial literacy starts at home, starts with yourself, and the lessons that you learn there are things that you can apply towards your organization, towards helping affect the change that you're looking to do. Because when it comes down to everything costs money. You want to try to liberate yourself from, the confines of materialism. That's a nice aspiration to have. It's a beautiful thing to strive towards minimalism and only buy what you need and all those. I'm all for that for the individual. But at the end of the day, you still got to eat. You still have to pay rent or a mortgage. You still have to pay for this laptop that we're using, for the cell phone that you have in your pocket, and living paycheck to paycheck is not going to cut it for you in the long term. At some point, living paycheck to paycheck becomes a liability, and people need to learn the ways to get around that in a sustainable way. And that comes down to financial literacy. Like once you know what money is and how money behaves, then you can start to learn how to save money and increase the money that you have. And those are, I think, just basic things that everybody needs to know.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's like it's basic and it's simple to some degree, but for that reason, it's just like it's elusive when it comes to just like simple things like losing weight. For you and I mean, we might have not had the best examples in terms of financial literacy growing up. Our fathers.
So you and I trying to lose weight.
Oh, that too. That's a whole nother episode. That's going to be like a 3-part series for that one,
sure.
In depth. And we'll need some more experts. But our parents, our fathers, they instilled in us amazing things like good work ethic, hustling, having a great character, being a person of integrity, and just follow through and all those things. But when it comes to financial literacy, I think there was that lack there because I know my father didn't have his father around when he was growing up. So what was I figure we can kick off this thing is like, also, what was your aha moment? How did you come around to like valuing personal finance and at an individual level, not just a theoretical understanding like, oh, you got to actually save more than you make and spend less than you make. So how'd that come around for you? What was your big aha moment?
Well, my big aha moment was at some point in my early 20s. I hadn't graduated college yet, but I worked through my college career and working close to full time, if not full time. Especially towards the end, I was definitely working full time, and just that idea, like I realized I was living paycheck to paycheck, right? When I was 18 or 19, got my first credit card, just started going to school. I was stupid with money. There's no way around it. And I think that a lot of people fall into that trap. You know that at the end of the month, you should be paying off your credit card bill. You know that just because everybody's always told you that, if you're going to buy something with a credit card, try to pay it off at the end of the month. But the facility that a credit card gives you to only pay back a portion of that at the end of the month and still keep using it is a trap for a lot of young people. You don't have that self-discipline yet. You don't have that real understanding of how interest is going to compile month after month and what it's actually going to cost you before you end up paying for something. And so that aha moment came for me when I didn't think I was doing anything different in my day-to-day, but I started realizing my paycheck seemed to be lasting me a little bit less and less. And that was happening because of interest on things. Like I wasn't really using my credit cards more than I had ever done in the past. I wasn't going out more. I wasn't doing anything different. But because for such a long time, I had been paying minimums on things, and still using my credit card on top of that, that interest was starting to pile up and catch up. And, month after month, the amount of interest was just a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And so that ended up, I saw the available money start to like shrink a little bit, and I was like, what's going on here? And that's when I started writing things down. And by writing things down, just in an Excel sheet, nothing crazy. I wasn't trying to write down like what I spent at Wendy's, like, during the week. Like, just big things, like what I was paying for my car, what I was paying for internet and phone, like big things, credit card payments, trying to pay for that stuff, writing that stuff down helped me see where my money was going. And as I wrote that down month to month, I started writing down more things month to month, and seeing the numbers in front of me is what helped me realize that I needed to make a change and learn how to fix this. Because in the moment, my salary wasn't just going to increase all of a sudden. So I had to do something other than the salary to help adjust for that. And so I needed to learn about, okay, exactly what is the percentage on my credit card? Okay, what does that mean for me month to month? What am I paying for my car what can I do to try to reduce that? You know, and so you start to learn these little things, like just the basics, like understanding the basics of things helps you understand how to fix it, right? Like I'm a techie, you know, and I work on, I mean, I try not to work on computers anymore. I try to leave that to somebody else. But like I started off by learning the basics, right? The first time my computer broke, to be able to fix it, I needed to understand the basics of how a computer functioned. And so in order to fix my financial situation, I needed to understand the basics about how money functions. And so starting to do that is made an immediate change, made an immediate swing in the other direction for me on the pendulum in terms of my financial stability.
So you used like a manual like Excel spreadsheet and did some basic formulas from scratch, or did you use a template online?
I did a column for the month, and then I did rows for like my big ticket items, and then I did a formula on each column that just gave me the sum at the bottom, so that I knew how much I was paying off every month. And that was it. And then every month, or not every month, but every once in a while, I kind of looked at that. Okay, what other big things am I not including in this calculation that I should be keeping track of? You know, and that spreadsheet just started to grow and grow a little bit until I got a more comprehensive understanding of where my money was going every month, so that I could make the adjustments necessary to improve my situation.
Yeah, I think the important thing with that is that you got to start with where you are, period. Yeah. I think probably one of the big things for people who are afraid of financial literacy or personal finance, they want to think about it is like, it's almost like out of sight, out of mind. Sure. They don't want to see the damage done, you know, that they're, and so even it happens to everybody. Just recently, my wife and I were going through our financials, and we were one of those things where when we got married, we were consolidating our debt. And we had a great credit card that we used, and that intro APR expired.
Right.
And we let it slip for like, I think 2 months at some ridiculous APR after that. I was like, oh my goodness, can't believe it. You know, and it was a quick fix. But it was one of those things where even when you're super intentional, things can sneak up on you. So imagine if you're not really, you know, trying to steer this ship. How bad those things can slip through the cracks over time consistently. Now, what's interesting to me about this whole thing is that we're talking like a lot of my audience members have been, you know, master's degrees. They have a lot of school debt. Some are even PhDs, you know, or teaching faculty positions to sociology, social work. They're in the social change space. And what's crazy about the credit card debt and school debt is that you can't have bankruptcy on you can't file bankruptcy on school debt. That thing follows you the rest of your life, you know. And that's the thing that's like, I feel like there's an important part of that discussion is like, okay, you got your credit card piece, then now you got your school debt, and you sometimes have to have like a different not a strategy, but like, you know, a different different strategy on how to address those things, you know. For you, like, you know, how a lot of people are afraid of the side hustle to kind of compensate for some of those extra debt. You know, what are some of your thoughts on handling that? Because a lot of people are they're working the 9 to 5, and that's their finite income. Like, that's it.
I don't know if I want to quote my dad or if I want to quote one of my ex-bosses on this one, but I mean, my dad, out of necessity, worked a second job to support the family, right? Like, he had his 9 to 5, and then he had, you know, an afternoon job, essentially doing the old work he used to do, right? Like, he was an engineer at this point, but he had a family to support, and so he would work in the afternoons in the machine shop at another company. To make up for that gap in income, right? The next boss of mine told me once, don't ever say no to somebody willing to pay you money. for what you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I think that side hustle is important. I think it's not for everybody, and I get that. I absolutely get that. And sometimes it's not for you right now, you know. But I don't think you should ever close off the possibility of an opportunity in which you can make extra money. You know, because you might be afraid that it's going to take up too much time. You might be afraid that it's going to distract you from what your other priorities are. Maybe you're not going to make enough money. Maybe it's not worth it. You know, whatever it is. But once you start doing it, once you start building that skill set, you might find that that's a valuable, monetizable skill set that you have available to you. And if you can make more money, if you can build your workflow, make the process simpler for you to do this work, and be paid more money for it, it's absolutely worth it, you know, because now you have a second stream of income. You know, you have something that, heaven forbid, your 9 to 5 disappears.
Yeah.
It's something that's already working for you. Maybe it's not. It doesn't have to be working for you at the same level that the 9 to 5 is working for you at, you know. But it's already something that you've started and you have some experience in, and then maybe you could turn up a little bit, you know, if needed. It help you just keep afloat until you find another full-time position, you know. So I would say, like, don't, even if you're not doing it, don't close yourself off the possibility that you have something in your skill set that can be monetized.
Yeah, agreed. And I think and something, the reason why this resonated with me and I wanted to make an episode of this was because I think when it comes to community change or community support and looking at solutions, I think we've got to have all things on the table. I'm so sick and tired of the narrow, very myopic view of like what social change is supposed to look like, and almost like stereotyping. Like, listen, like we're minorities, and there's all kinds of stereotypes that surround us. We don't like it. You know, sometimes it most of the time doesn't serve us well, or it's not true. And so we don't like stereotypes. And the same is true when it comes to solutions. When we think like solutions and community change going to look a certain way, we really like, it's almost like fighting with your hand tied behind your back. So when it comes to personal finance and navigating these waters and like getting more in depth on these issues, and as a tool set for community change, for social change, I think it should be explored more intentionally. Now, like you said, it shouldn't be closed off when it comes to that side hustle. And you said like it's maybe not for you right now. I would agree 100%. I just find that if as a community we come together financially, there's some things that we can do as short-term solutions with cash infusion in local communities, local small businesses, that can act as a measure to kind of like dilute the impact of the inequalities in inner cities. You know, one of the side benefits of like really taking on a side hustle and trying to get out of debt and having some extra disposable income is really like reinvesting in the community, paying for that one kid to go on that trip too, and doing like a love offering, you know, in that respect. So those are things that I kind of harp on like big time, that doesn't really get enough light of day. You know, have you ever are you entertained, like you're currently in a position where you're doing like some odd jobs here and there, you know, did you always feel like you could do that, you know, take on those side things, or did you have to work your way up to, all right, I actually can technically sell myself to the point where someone can actually pay me something?
So,
and watch the mic because it's on the collar again.
Yeah. So I think that my field of choice, my career of choice, lends itself to be able to do side projects for people. You know, working in a technical field, people always need from basic things as like office refreshes, which I've done like early on in my career. You come in for a weekend, you work for like Chase Bank as a contractor for a weekend. You come in, you change out all the computers with 5 other guys, you get paid for that project, and that's it. To working with small businesses and trying to help them get set up with a phone solution, helping individuals in their homes, trying to set up a media center or some kind of like small home network, things like that. So like all those little one-off kind of projects, lend themselves to what I chose to do, for my career. And very early on, I had the opportunity. People would ask me, just because they knew me from the office, hey, could you come over and help me do this? Hey, my dad has, the problems at his office. Could you go help him, take care of whatever it is? And so those things would kind of come by themselves every once in a while. It did take me a while to realize that I could sell myself to do that. It did take me a while to realize that I was good enough to be promoting myself to do those kinds of jobs for people. I'm sure that it's true of every career, but I feel like with technology, with some of the sciences, it probably feels more true with those in that you never feel fully prepared. Like you know that you don't know everything in that field, right? Like technology changes too fast. There's always something happening. Somebody else is always working with another technology that you've never touched. And so a lot of times you feel underprepared to do something, to apply for a job even, like you see this list of like 10 requirements that they're looking for. You only have like 7. And you're like, well, how important are those last 3? Like, are those 3 really necessary? Like I've always wanted to work with those 3, but I never got the chance to. But the reality is that you're in the same boat that everybody else is. As good as somebody else is, you probably have something that they've never worked with, and if you're willing to learn, that's a huge thing too. My friends and I used to joke around that the interview process for a tech job is like 60%, yeah, I've done that already, and 40%, yeah, I've done that already. Wait, let me go home and learn it before I get the job,
Yeah.
So as long as you have the ability to learn, as long as you have the willingness to learn, then you're already in a better position than half of the people out there, because a lot of times people get into their career and they just kind of skate by, and that's fine. That's what you want to do. That's not a problem. Not everybody is going to be a solutions provider. Some people are just going to be
worker bees.
Whatever level that they're at, and that's absolutely fine. But yeah, once you get past that wall of thinking you're not good enough to do something for somebody else, that opens it up a lot, because then you're going into conversations with a different view of yourself, a different view of the conversation, a new higher level of confidence. Like I'm 36 at this point, right? And so I've been working in tech for give or take about 20 years. I've worked on multi-million-dollar projects. I've led teams of 10 people directly reporting to me internationally, with like what ends up being, maybe like 100 people underneath them. So like I've done these big things, and to me, that was just the day-to-day, right? To me, it wasn't a big deal. Like I never thought of it as anything special. It was just part of my responsibilities of being at that level in my career. But then you start to express those things to other people. Like, yeah, I've worked with teams in India, teams in the Dominican Republic, teams in Australia, teams in whatever, and the other person who is not in your field is like, wow, that's amazing, that's awesome. Like you have all this experience. And hearing somebody else say, you have all this experience, you start to say, wait a second, I do have all this experience. So never sell yourself short on the experiences that you've had. Just because it's day to day for you doesn't mean it's not important. It doesn't mean it's not big, doesn't mean it's not valuable. And once you start to realize that those things are valuable, if something's valuable, somebody's willing to pay for that.
Agreed, 100%, man.
And that's where you can start to. That's where you start to promote yourself. That's where you start to sell yourself and pick up these side projects that you can turn into extra money.
Yeah, there's like two ways you could think about it too. Because one, you can do like take what you do now and do like a shift, a slight shift as a consultant or someone that's like a solutions provider or public speaking on the topic. They call it subject matter experts, and kind of go with that route. My route was a little different in that I just kind of stumbled into this passion for technology as a means for solutions, and just like hitched it on what I studied in undergrad and where I worked in higher ed, in terms of like, making a difference in lives of people who've been like, underserved or underrepresented. And so if there's people who are listening who are thinking like, man, I don't know if I can do that, or, maybe it's not for me, or you're shy a little bit, but like, like Angel was saying, write down a list of all your accomplishments, things that you've done, and list them down. And you never know, it might be small to you, but like Angel said, it could be a big deal for other people. So don't count yourself short. And number two, if you're like looking to do a shift, because I do believe there is, you got to pick and choose your battles. Like there are industries are not the same. They're all created equally. Some are more lucrative than others. If you're thinking about making a pivot, what I've seen, like, again, like I don't have a degree in computer science or any of those things, but I've been able to do websites and help with social media and email marketing and a lot of digital communication stuff. But that came from me doing it as a volunteer for free for a while to learn the ropes, get some credibility, and build those networks and relationships. Then I got paid. And I got paid about talking about it, not just doing it, and also down the road after actually implementing it too. So there's this thing where it's like it's not even impossible to make that shift. With people think like, oh, I have to go another 4 years to go to higher ed or school to get to even think about that. No. The internet is a beautiful thing. YouTube is a beautiful thing. Learn all that stuff. Do some stuff for free. Cut your teeth on it. And then that's a big way to kind of make that shift.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The internet has so much information. Like, I think people get lost in the original purpose of what the internet was for, right? Today you're on Facebook and Instagram and your email, and you play a game online, and you're reading news, and you're reading gossip, and you're reading whatever. There's a million and one things that you can do online and with technology, and a million and one things that we haven't even thought of yet. But the purpose originally, and in some ways everything that I mentioned is still part of that, but the purpose of what the internet was, the purpose of what the World Wide Web was to be able to share information.
Yeah.
And so that information is out there. It's just that sometimes people forget to go look for it. And so you can absolutely be self-taught, particularly in technology.
Oh yeah.
By going online and reading and testing and trying free tools and finding a chat group who is involved in this stuff, and finding a Facebook group, and finding and then you find a meetup group, and you take it offline and go to like these presentations, and you meet people, and you start talking with people, and you start working on projects with people. And so, like, I have never worked on a project outside of like my 9 to 5. I've never worked on a side project where the business owner asked me what my credentials were.
There you go.
Never happened.
Wow.
Never happened. And maybe at some point, like, they maybe should have asked, but the point is, like, I'm coming recommended, or I'm coming from a discussion personally with that
where you
individual,
gained their trust, you knew what you're talking
where
about.
I gained their trust and they saw that I knew what I was talking about. Exactly. You know, so it's like I've never worked on a side project where I had to defend that I graduated from NJIT, that I have 17 years experience in technology, that I have, you know, managed multinational tech teams. Like I've never had to say that to somebody working on their small office network. That came from
I don't know. Can you work on our website if you I don't know, and they start asking you about this stuff. Yeah, a lot of it's like taken for granted. Like if you're even in front of me, there's a reason why you're in front of me, and they go from there.
Right, absolutely. You know, so
that's cool, man. And literally the internet started like from universities sharing information. Like that's the irony of all this. So that's side hustle. You know, like one, start from where you are. Two, you can't financially thrive. I mean, technically you can, but you can't. It's harder to financially thrive unless you increase your income somehow, some way. I think people have this impression that they're going to save their way into retirement. The reality is, with inflation, rising costs, depending where you live, especially for us, like or at least where it used to be, tri-state area, that's very expensive. You know, on like $30,000, $40,000 a year, that is, and you got school debt on top of that. You can only penny pinch your way to financial freedom. You're going to be grinding in such a way where it's like, it's going to be incredibly difficult. So that's where the side hustle really gives you like some framework of hope. Like, okay, I can dig myself out of this. Actually, we both know a friend who did like a side hustle where it wasn't even like tied to a passion. Matt, you know, he straight up worked weekends hardcore for like, I think it was like 6 years. And I think no more debt at all, or no more school debt at all. I forget what the post was, but
he paid
incredible. He paid his dues.
He paid his wedding with that. He paid off his school debt with that. You know, so and like you said, like it wasn't even a
passion project or something like that. Yeah,
right. It wasn't a passion project. It was just a second job on the weekend.
Grind.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now imagine those who are listening. You're making 40, 50 G's a year. You get a side hustle or you get a weekend job, and you grind for like 4 to 5 years. You know, but then you're 30 something. You got like 50 freaking years left of your life to be financially free. What can you do with that money? For social change, for investing in causes, you know, going to those conferences where you sponsor someone for a conference, and you know, those kind of things are incredible value that I don't think we think about enough. And so, entrepreneurship, economic development really comes down to personal finance, and I think there's as we wrap up, like in terms of like community engagement, I think we gotta start reversing the stigma that business is bad, looking for a profit is evil, and not let that stereotype of like the corporate side, the super evil corporate overlords like narrative creep in too much in inner cities, because I think it's a powerful way to channel the creativity of our youth, the interests that they have, and to discover themselves, and also to pass time. I mean, we all know that if there's nothing really to do and nothing that you're really working on when you're younger, and especially in a dangerous environment, it's going to be easy to slip in the wrong crowd and those things. So that's where I come from, and that angle is like, you know, we got to, you know, push this a little bit more on that. And thankfully it's becoming more and more on the radar. Angel, I'm going to go through something that my aha moment was for my financial path of as we go through freedom from Susie and I. Then, you know, if you want to chime in on what some of the things that you do or some apps that you use. But for me, man, Dave Ramsey and Financial Peace University. It's a Christian-based program, but my goodness, you can strip away all the Christian references away, and this thing will still be like amazing program in terms of making it accessible to someone who might not, who's like starting from like, zero and learning about personal finance. And I want to kind of quickly go through the 7 baby steps that he lists. And we'll put that in the show notes too, like where people can sign up if they want to. But if you're like, if you're listening and you don't know where to start because it's so overwhelming, and you like the idea of like, oh my gosh, being debt free, having more disposable income to give to my causes and to, do maybe some work overseas. This is for me, I found this to be the most amazing starting point. And in terms of the results, he has people on his show, and his radio show, podcast, almost pretty much on a weekly or every other day of the week, doing debt-free screams. So this is something that, you see these credit card gurus online from other financial gurus. They're talking about, changing your credit score and all this stuff. And I don't know what the success rate is at. I don't think you get financial freedom by changing your APR from 1% to this percent, and that'd be the game plan only. You got to have like a huge head-on tackle. But this one, I know for a fact, has like gotten thousands of people out of debt and financially free from a lot of crazy stuff. So the first one is save $1,000 for a baby step. 1, save $1,000 as an emergency fund. And once you got that, to get to that $1,000, you put in the savings account. Then you go hardcore on paying off debt, and you do your debt from the lowest amount of debt to the highest amount. And then the reason for that is, even though the math doesn't work out, you think, hey, what's the highest APR, and tackle that one first on a credit card. For him, he was saying, take the lowest credit card or debt, whatever it is, and pay that off first. The psychological, emotional juices that you get from paying off your first card or the small thing, and whatever that minimum payment was for that, you use that towards the second highest or the second lowest. That's called the snowball effect. So he goes into that. Then you jump up your emergency fund, and he goes on to different solutions for other steps like financial saving for your house, college, paying off your home, and then build wealth and give. So the first one is save $1,000. And then the second one is pay off debt, which is mostly people are going to be sticking around for those steps for a long time. But that's really like the core of the program, is not so much, doing everything perfectly by the numbers, but doing things in a way that's a little more habit forming, a little more human, a little more practical and realistic. So that's something I want to throw out there for people. For you, Angel, any type of thing that you want to give to people as we walk away with tangible resources they can use.
Well, first I want to comment on the program that you were just talking about. I think that what you said before beginning to outline those steps is important. This is what worked for you.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm glad that it's working for you. And it's probably going to work for a lot of people also. But don't be afraid to do research. Don't be afraid to try to find something that's going to fit you personally. Every system is not going to work for every person. But in order for you to make changes in your life, you do need to have a system around you, and whether that's something that you find somewhere else, something that you purchase into, that you find and you study and you emulate, or whether it's a system that you build yourself around your own lifestyle, you need steps in place. You need a plan to follow, or otherwise you're just spinning your wheels and you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So it's important to have that system in place. And I do like you're saying that you're starting to talk about that second step about paying off the lowest thing first. And like immediately in my head, I was like, the math on that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Like paying off something, the feeling of accomplishment that you get from that is huge in creating that momentum for you to continue taking those steps forward, and so I think that's absolutely valuable. I think that's a really, really good step for a person to take. I like that.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of me, I think this is going to be a topic that we'll come back to a bunch. and discuss in more and more depth every time. But I think for me, one of the things that's helped me out without getting into a specific tool is automation, right? So, it's easy to say, I'm going to save $50 every paycheck and put it into account and into a separate account, right? But if you have to go to your bank account every second Friday and move $50 to another account, there's going to be weeks that you forget. There's going to be weeks where you think you can't afford to do that. So don't leave it up to yourself. Set up a rule. Set up another account that automatically pulls. Use an app that will automatically save that for you. Take it out of your hands so that saving is happening automatically.
Yeah.
Because then you're no longer thinking about it. You're no longer even realizing that money's not in your main account anymore, that it's going somewhere else. And by the time you go back to check where you are saving it, it's built up into a sizable amount. So automate as much as possible, I would say, in a safe way. Read everything before you just jump into it. But I would try to automate saving as much as possible. That way you don't have to think about it, and it's just happening. And by the time you need it, it's there.
Dude, I did that one time in college. I forgot I even had a savings account, and my car broke down, and I found out I have $700. Oh my goodness. It was the most incredible feeling. Sure. So that stuff does work. I know for a lot of bank services, they automatically do that to the bank. There's no special app for that. Just go online and sign up. Also, something that's helped me too was in terms of a daily accountability was the text messages or the emails of the daily balance.
Sure.
Or even thresholds. If it goes under this amount, notify me. The text message and or email. So those are kind of small things to kind of start giving you a little more sensitivity to your spending and where you are financially. Of course, you can always do Google searches on when you said you wrote everything out on a spreadsheet. That's what my wife does. I used to be a big advocate of Mint or those type of services where it's they attach to your accounts and they give you some nice spreadsheets and nice graphics. But my wife was like, I want to see everything the way I see it. And she color coded it. Thing looks like, Skittles, rainbow, for her Excel spreadsheet. But you can always find those things online too. Just do a Google search for budget spreadsheets and download them, accordingly. Of course, from safe sources, just to download Excels and macros and stuff like that. So that's, just some small tips, but, we'll end it here. Angel, do you have a Twitter handle or anything you want to share where people can find more info for you?
My Twitter handle is Angel Raphael, Rafael, not PH, not Italian, Colombian. And not that I'm that active on Twitter, but every once in a while, particularly when there's some kind of big security issue. The
Equifax thing. You're the one that posted it, yeah.
Which is ridiculous. When there's big news, I tend to repost on social media. Otherwise, I don't really do anything besides post pictures of my dog on Instagram. If anybody wants to get some more information about some of the financial literacy tools that I have used to educate myself, they can always shoot me a direct message on Twitter. You can send me an email, Angel Marenco, Marenco @gmail.com. And angelmarenco.com should be up in about a week or so. And that'll probably, at least for now, that'll just direct you right to my LinkedIn page. But feel free to add me on LinkedIn also, and happy to talk on there and chat and help out wherever I can.
All right, cool, man. Thanks so much. And for those listening, hopefully you gain some value on this to jumpstart your interest and becoming more financially free, man. Us social change agents, we can't be broke all the time, man. We can't. I'm saying we start the process broke, but we can't stay broke. That's my theme for this whole thing. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, Angel, and we'll have you on soon. All right.
All right. Thanks, man.
See ya. Peace.
All right. Bye.